And Gavin asked you. You asked me the question: is she hot?
Yep.
And immediately I'm like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. Now, I had come up with this character as kind of like an Indiana Jones. I think maybe like kind of cheerful, like Indiana Jones, adventurous lady type archaeologist. Which is cool, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I made one critical mistake. So Ella, I had looked through the druid spell list and seen this one particular spell, blood something, that tells you if somebody is related to you. And I was like, oh man, I have reveals planned for later that I hope they just don't see that spell. Hello, hello, and welcome to A Slight Chance of Adventure, a Pathfinder First Edition campaign diary podcast. My name is Tyler. I was the DM of this campaign, and with me I have two of my players, Gavin
Hello, I played Shauna.
and Tom.
Hello, I played Orcus.
Last time, they entered some underground, ancient, buried ruins that were um, infested with undead, and they spent most of the time just exploring those. This time, we'll pick up as they start to make their way back to the surface. Okay, so we picked up with you guys. Uh, you'd just like you just gone through the vision door. Do you guys remember the vision door?
Yeah, I
I
do.
remember it.
I went through it.
Yeah,
You say Vision Door.
Wait,
yeah.
it wasn't really a door, was it?
No, it was a doorway that like opened up, and there was just like it was a closet door, really. um, there was just like
Go
some
to
loot. You guys had
nowhere.
gotten Yeah, so you guys had gotten the loot from that, the new crystal and a little tapestry depicting some ancient history. We talked about it last time.
Mm.
So once you guys had done that, you were like, okay, well, we've explored this whole place. Guess we should go back up, right?
And sell
But
this painting for money.
yeah, I don't know if you brought the paintings back on the first trip because you'll actually come back down here briefly again later because the paintings are pretty big, and the process of getting back to the surface was kind of involved, if you remember.
Yeah, that's true.
Um, and also, you were aware of the fact that you'd let out a evil undead creature, if
Mm-hmm.
you recall. You start making your way back up through the caves, and as you're going through like the caves that connect back to the surface, you're stopped, and the undead. It's a skeleton mage is the stat block, and it was a female skeleton mage, although they're undead, so it doesn't really matter. Um,
Hey, we respect pronouns here.
not yeah, yeah. It's not skeleton. Sorry, not skeleton mage. A bone priest. That's what they were.
Ah.
Um, and right at this instant, like when well, okay, there was one thing I recall from this, and this was the one of the first instances of a bad habit of yours, Tom, that I like got annoyed with.
Oh,
Um,
yeah?
which was quipping like mid like you'd quip at the thing like this the bone priest tried to like do a little evil speech, and you were just like oh.
Yeah, I should have like let you do your thing and then quit maybe, but yeah.
Well, it's fine to quip at if your character is actually saying it. The thing that would sometimes annoy me it'd be unclear whether like is Tom saying this or is his character saying this? Is Tom interrupting me or is his character interrupting the enemy?
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
So because sometimes it was funny.
Why not both?
Well, yeah, and you guys did like I think it was Gavin who was like, okay, yeah, we just shoot this thing. We don't let it talk. We're just gonna fight. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so it was like up. Oh yeah, and at this point, something relevant to what's about to happen in the fight. Uh, Elika's player had to leave, and this is the first time we've ever had a player have to leave. Um, and it was just something unexpected came up. They had to leave, and I think it was Gavin. You took control of her character,
Yep.
and you knew a little bit more about particularly summoning magic that her character had access to.
Yeah.
So do you remember what you did in the fight?
I remember summoning an air elemental because druids can like use up spell slots to like just summon things.
Right.
Yeah, specifically summon nature's ally, right?
Yeah, which is a spell. But yeah, I summoned an air elemental, and then it turned into a tornado, and then dropped a bunch of people into a pit.
Yeah, because there was like a high ground, a normal ground that you guys were on, and there was a pit to the side, and you just like threw everyone into the pit with Elika, and like I have noted here, completely destroy the fight, Elika MVP. Because
An Elka's player wasn't even there.
yeah, no.
Yep.
It's sometimes funny when like a player's missing, and then we have sometimes usually when well we can talk a little bit about what we do when players are missing. A lot of the time, I just balance as if they're not there, and we just say, "Oh yeah, they're over there fighting" or whatever. You just don't worry about it.
Yeah, we also had like a time where like you would treat them like a turret, where like, oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
if they're within range of this enemy, they do 25 damage.
yeah. There's just an assumed amount of damage they give and take, I think, and so it's like, okay, there's just constant damage over there, and I'll let you guys maybe move them around if you wanted. So there's that. There's just assume they're doing something and and like but just balance the counter as if there was like one less person. And then
Yeah.
there's this where we just literally let somebody control them, and sometimes when you literally just let somebody else control them, the person controlling them knows what they're doing better or worse, which can affect the sort of balance and what I'm prepared for.
It can really
Yeah.
change scenarios.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because at that point I've been playing Pathfinder for almost like 2-3 years.
It went from Elika's player who was still figuring out the ropes of what the heck Druid was to you, Gavin, who's just like, oh yeah, I do this, I do that, and I just destroy the fight. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that was a possibility. Okay,
Yeah, Druid also does have a lot to it because
it
like
does, it does.
there's the animal companion,
Yes.
then there's wild shape, and there's also spells. There's also the
All
fact
the
that
spells, yeah,
all the spells, and you can transform any of those spells to any time to summon nature's ally.
yeah. So there's the whole summon list. Druid is deceptively complex. Like
Yeah.
a lot of players will choose it like, ooh, animal, and then it's like all this other shit.
Oh
Um,
my.
so anyway, after destroying that fight, you guys make your way back to the surface. You see that the ship that brought you over has left, where the like the dock, little dock that you guys left at. But apparently they left you a note carved into a board being like, "Hey, here's the nearest settlement. Go over there if you need to get back." Um,
Yeah, because, like, we weren't paid to stay. We were paid to take you here.
yeah. Also, for some reason, I have no idea why this was mentioned, but there was apparently 3 graves at the dock, and I don't know if those were members of the crew. I don't think they were, but I've got that noted for some.
I do not remember that at all.
No, I don't remember why I noted this at all. It's not in my notes. So it's just
You
a mystery.
killed 3 crew members,
I guess
innocent
so.
crew.
I just decided to apparently.
That's fucked up,
Um,
Tyler.
who knows what happened?
No one will ever know now.
Oh yeah, apparently you guys talk a little bit about like what you saw in the vision door. Um, Also, apparently
Yeah.
there's some jokes about BDSM on the way back. That's yeah.
Sure, I
Yeah.
guess.
Tracks.
it revolved. I think it revolved somewhere around like Elika casting certain spells, but yeah,
I feel
like
like we
vines,
bullied
whatever.
Orcus about it.
Yeah, but
Maybe
that just always
it's quite
happens.
possible. Yeah, that you can assume Orcus is getting bullied. Um,
Poor
um,
Orcus. Poor Tom.
was-
Another joke that I remember, a common joke we make whenever a character is missing is also like that they're just making static noises instead of talking.
Yeah, those
Oh
old
yeah,
TVs.
the classic. You got to make sure to always ask their opinion more than you normally would.
Oh yeah. So you guys make it to a nearby town. It didn't have a name, and some like town folks are like, "Who are these guys? Who that? What?" And so there's a little gathering while you guys wait for like a boat. Um, or no, or waiting for the ship to get prepared to leave. And I think like Sean, like you do like create water or something. Apparently, Tom, you also buy a net because you were proficient with a net, and I think
Mm.
you were thinking like, oh, maybe I'll use this.
Yeah, maybe I'll do bounty hunter stuff.
Perfect for a slaver.
Yeah. Well, his build was, yeah, very. He
Yeah,
was called the bounty hunter archetype. So had a lot of CC abilities.
yeah, but I never like properly used them.
Yeah.
I tried to sometimes.
So you get back to Hintella, and the rest of this, what we're going to talk about this session, and we're actually going to do the next session. um, is you guys mostly just screwing around in Hantella, talking to people, selling things, buying things. So
Yeah.
yeah, and some other things happen, but all of it's in Hantella.
Now there was
Um,
also a thing about going back to get those paintings, but
yeah, you
yeah.
you were like planning because yeah, the paintings were left there. So apparently, you sell some weapons because you probably picked some up from the skeletons you slayed.
Yeah, I remember that. Me and the other guy,
Fierce,
yeah, Fierce, were like, yeah, carry weapons, sell for money, haha, profit.
right? Oh yeah, Shanla and Elika, you two both go to talk to Kadir, who's like the librarian for the Sightseekers.
Right.
He's like the guy you show like artifacts and stuff, and are like, okay, look at this for a bit, then tell us about it. Um,
Because we didn't have a brainy boy in our party.
yeah, you didn't have any like wizard or whatever. So he filled that role for you guys. Um, and so I'm assuming you showed him like the various artifacts and books you found, and probably the
No,
shard
crystal.
of creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crystal. Oh, Mela pulls Shanla ahead. Mela is like second in command of the Sightseekers after Tuzma. Um,
Yes.
yes, and she pulls Shanla aside. It uses a zone of truth on her, um, and it is like, hey, are you a follower of Apollyon? Are you evil? um, of course, you say no. Do you remember this, Gavin, at all?
Yes, I do remember this.
That is grade A paranoia.
I think Shanlo was pretty compliant with it.
Oh yeah, you were very cooperative.
I don't got anything to
But anyway,
hide.
yeah, Mela eventually tells you like, "Hey, listen, we're pretty sure there's followers of Apollyon hiding among us, you know." And she wanted to make sure you weren't one of those, and then inform you guys since you're doing work that like, "Hey, this is a problem. Watch out." Oh,
Yeah.
um, so you guys head over to the Broken Plank, which is like the tavern you guys have stayed at a lot of the time in Hindala.
Yep.
Um, and there is a hobgoblin sitting there at the bar. And I introduced, I hadn't told you about this character before, Gavin or Tom. Um, but I told them,
Yeah,
I told you at this time that, oh, this is Cal Butte. He was kind of your friend. Do you remember Cal Butte, Tom?
I remember. I remember. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
I don't
Um,
remember
I also
Calbutte.
remember Gavin attempting to eavesdrop.
sorry, sorry, what, Tom?
I remember Gavin trying to eavesdrop on the conversation.
I don't have that noted, but I believe it. At this, it's Cal Butte. Apparently, the reason he's here, he's still working like properly for Tuval, the island.
Slave Island.
He has a
Yeah.
note from, he has a note from your father for you, Orcus, that he slips to you. Um,
Yeah.
and I think this is also when we decided on your father's your Orcus's last name, and also you learned what your dad's name was.
Yeah.
So it's Forcis Arback. So making your last name Orcus Arback.
Are back. Yeah. And then it does kind of reveal who my father is later, I believe.
We have more with your dad, Orcus's dad later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shanla gets some rooms and explains to the party like, "Hey, cultists, that's the thing. Be ready." Um,
It was never discussed again.
nope.
Well, it came up.
So this next note I had to look at
Yeah.
before this recording to like figure out, okay, Kibibi, who the fuck is Kibibi? I needed to figure out who Kibibi was, who apparently talks to Fierce and tells him Druin wants to see him in Perico, which is like
Oh.
the one place on Tuval that isn't controlled by the slavers. Kibibi is apparently one of the two parrot folk who like help keep the Ivory Fang hideout on Maleku hidden. So they like use illusion magic, and apparently that's the
Ah.
worst. Yeah. So I had no idea, so I had to go find that out. You, Orcus, go to your room and read the letter. Before we get to the letter, you might notice I had like a bunch of different things. Like the goal of this session, I think for me, was to like present you guys a bunch of different choices. Like, oh, this person wants you over here. This person wants you guys over here. What are you gonna do?
Forget what we did.
We
Like
did.
which one we did
Well,
first.
mostly you just fucked around in Hintella taking care of busy work these sessions.
Yes.
Uh, I think the first thing, it won't happen when we talk about it here, but I think the first thing you guys actually end up doing is going and selling the paintings.
Because we were not very liquid.
Yeah, so the letter reads, From what I've heard, you finally realized how much you're capable of. Good. Unfortunately, I doubt that has rid you of that useless softness of yours. But nothing is ever perfect. Either way, I have an opportunity. The fleet master, Vitase Unas, is attempting to take power over Tuval and the slave trade from the chief. Uh, do not share this information with anyone. Return to me with the head of any of the following, and all previous mistakes will be easily forgotten by those allied with the chief, of whom I am among, and you will find yourself in a much higher position than you were previously. Um, so essentially, he's like, kill these people,
Yeah.
and you're back in. All is forgiven, right? Do you remember this, Tom, at all?
Yeah, I remember it.
Did you have any particular feelings about this, Tom?
It was a thing where I had to decide whether my character wanted to, like, how my character would react, and it's like, does he want to be back yet at this point?
Right.
Or is he. Because it's like that struggle of his approval and going the ranks of what he knows, or all this new stuff that's like nice and cool and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And also there's the whole like the tone of the letter is very much like I'm expecting you to do this. You're going to do this. Like there's no room for
Yeah.
negotiation here. Is kind of this I think was a very good introduction to the character of Orcus's father. You know.
I believe it was, yeah.
Also, I think I read this in the father's voice at the time, which was like something like this. You know, it was like really deep,
Yeah.
stern.
It really it went well doing it
And
that way.
disappointed in you
Yeah,
automatically.
disappointed. Yes.
Absolutely.
Disappointment and stern, like you're gonna do this. It was just like flowing through the whole letter. Yeah. Anyway, the two
What do you
targets.
mean you're gay?
There were like three kind of six, no, five, sorry, possible targets you're given. The leader of the Stone Chain Pirates, the Stone Chain
Yeah.
Day or Night Captains. So apparently they had day and night captains, and any of the Fleet Masters, three captains. Sorry, I was right. Six targets. So yeah, that was an
Yeah.
option. Oh, apparently there's more to the letter. Do not
Oh,
go after the Fleet Master himself. You will die and complicate things more than they are. Uh, bring your new allies if you wish. They seem like they might be useful. Prove you are worthy of the Arback name. Do not disappoint me.
yep. There's the disappointment again.
Yeah. So yeah, so there's apparently some sort of power struggle going on in Tuval, and he's trying to recruit you to help him. In fact, I think
Which we inevitably do, I think.
you do get involved. Things go slightly differently to described here, but yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Kevin.
He's disappointed that you took up like freelance adventuring. He's like, get a real job, be a slaver.
Well, no, the framing was kind of like you've had your fun and you've done some things where you've screwed up. I'll forgive it. Just do this for me. Like, you know, it's very sociopathic.
My friends hear your adventure. I'm very embarrassed.
Yeah.
I can't tell anyone what you do for work.
Yeah. It's been very awkward around the water cooler with the other slavers talking about my son, you know?
Yeah, he kind of did this thing where he worked with the people that are actively against us.
Yeah.
So.
Also, I think this was another part of this was like, oh, he knows what's happening. That was unclear. You didn't know if your dad knew what was happening with you.
What I
at
was
this
up
point.
to.
Yeah, so this is like, okay, he's watching, and so that was.
He's got spies everywhere.
Yeah. So at this point, Shanla has an idea. Shanla has a little idea. She goes down to the the bar, and buys drinks for everyone. And Gavin, you communicated to me at this point that you're trying to start like a big party. Do you remember
Yes.
like how you felt about like what were you thinking in going about this, and what inspired you to do this?
Shanla was a person who like left her hometown to be more adventurous, and she wanted to cause chaos.
Right.
And she hadn't really done that
In a
yet.
good way.
Yeah, fun chaos. So she's like, you know what? I'm gonna stir shit up here.
Right.
And she did.
I remember this was like this whole thing that they're about to describe was completely improv. Because like
Yes.
you just like, oh hey, I want to do this thing. I was like, okay, well, let's go. And so we just had
Let's
to
do it.
improv the whole thing, and it worked out. It worked out pretty. So yeah, Shanla essentially just going from bar to bar, buying a bunch of drinks, and getting the people to get cheery and like drunk and having a good time. Um,
Mhm.
uh,
There's a table involved, I'm pretty sure.
and the other party members are kind of just like swept up in this and do various things. The first thing is apparently Orcus and Calbute have a drinking competition. Orcus loses, and so
Yep.
is unconscious for the rest of the party.
Mm-hmm.
Fierce doesn't really get involved in the party. He goes and speaks with Ibris. If you guys remember who Ibris is, he's like the transforming Wolverine guy who you guys fought
Yeah,
and you captured
I
alive.
remember.
And previously Elika had tried to talk to him, and he'd been like, "No, fuck off, you're weak. You didn't beat me." I don't think that was.
She
And then so
kind of did.
Fierce decides to go talk, and Ibris is like, "Yeah, this is the guy I'll talk to. I'll tell him some stuff. This guy's strong. He's got muscles, you know." And apparently he tells you guys learn about the messenger, which is apparently like the guy who'd been telling Ibris what to do and giving him things. And you learn from this that or maybe you learn a little later, I think, but you learn that Ibris was essentially like setting up the blight collector things that would like send the blight to the thing you blew up, and that was what's used to infect a part of Wanatuma with the blight. So like Ibris's job was to set that stuff up in the blight, um,
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
recruited to do that by apparently the messenger. I also learned about green spots, which I have noted nowhere else what that is. I think it's just like parts of the blight that are still green. I think.
Yeah. They had like the crystals in them.
Maybe I don't know.
I think.
Yeah, that might be it. Oh yeah, maybe
Something keeping them green.
that might actually be it.
I.
Yeah, I think there was like that green spots were like where crystals were, and
Mhm.
Ibris was supposed to collect those crystals and give them to the messenger. You've just reminded me of that. Yeah, that was another one of his jobs. Um,
I think we went to go find a green spot at some point, or we already did.
well, you went to the center, the
Yeah.
island in the center of Maleku that was like the big tree
Mhm.
that you found the crystal that revived Shanla. That would have
Yes.
counted
That
as
was
green.
a green
Yeah,
spot.
yeah. And apparently there were other of those scattered throughout the what is now the blight. But Ibris's job was to go to those and get the crystals and give them to who knows the messenger. Ibris has clearly kept someone in the dark. He was also apparently given beads of destruction because another thing Ibris was recruited to do was invade the Wanatuma, lead the like because there was like you remember there was like void beasts rampaging over Wanatuma while the blight was being spread. You know, it
Yeah.
was the attack on Wanatuma. Um,
Yeah.
and apparently like Ivarus was given
Terrorism.
beads of destruction to kind of fuel some of the bigger, because you remember the bigger ones, the bigger void creatures had like beads of destruction embedded in them. Um,
Yeah, I
so
remember that.
yeah, so that Fierce goes and learns that, or at least makes, because you talk to him again a bit later, and this time and that time, but it's Fierce going and talking to him here, which kind of cracks him open and gets him to talk, because Fierce looks strong and beat him. Ibris feels like Fierce was kind of beat him, so he respects him.
Yeah. He
Um,
was worthy.
Even though we ganged up on him, essentially.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He's very simple-minded. He sees strong guy. He's like, okay, yeah, that guy's the. He does not respect magic.
This dude definitely watches Andrew Tate podcasts.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What I'm curious about is whether or not taking that crystal away from the green spot actually, like, did it stay a green spot?
No,
or
it
not,
would
you
have
know?
immediately got infected by the blight. Yeah.
Damn.
So I think we may have mentioned like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen to that central island that we took the crystal from. Oh well.
Whoopsie.
It
Whoopsie. Yeah,
happens.
these things happen. Um,
All in the name of archaeology.
yes.
Yep. In discovery, in colonization. Like any good
Mhm.
explorer, we destroy everything we come into contact with.
Anyway, let me read this. Oh yeah, so Fierce emerges from the prison, and at this point, I think I decided like, okay, yeah, the party has progressed, and now the whole town is partying. Shanla has successfully gotten the whole town partying. So there's and she is being carried around town on a table by a crowd of people. Um,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and Fierce joins in and buys more rounds of drinks for everybody. Contributes some of his. Oh, he also he goes and plays his banjo for like other people.
Yep.
Yep. Just imagine him in the middle of the party, just like plucking one string of his
Yeah, yeah.
banjo.
Well, I think it was he like found some corner after like buying some drinks. He just like played his banjo for a crowd of people who gathered around. Um, Also, I note this. I feel like Orcus, having been expected by everybody, you're be like we talked last time about everybody assumed Orcus was the criminal. Um,
Yeah.
and apparently Orcus just goes and pickpockets somebody carrying Shanla, just like steals a couple coppers.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, well, if this is what everybody says I am, then I guess this is what I'm supposed to do, right? This is my job.
We're gonna need those copper,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure.
And then this will be the thing this session ended on. Um, but I remember how this happened. I'm going to describe exactly how this happened. Was I was describing, oh yeah, party, 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 and then I kind of just offhandedly mentioned, like, oh, there's a group of sight seekers, and you see the second in command, um, Mela, who had previously talked to Shanla and said warned about the cult stuff, right? Um,
Mhm.
and Gavin asked you asked me the question, is she hot?
Yep.
And immediately I'm like, oh, okay, I see where this is going. Um, and and so I was like, she's reasonably attractive, da, da, da. And then Gavin's like, okay, I'm gonna try and seduce her. I'm like, I think I made you roll a straight charisma roll, and you like rolled a natural 20 or
Yeah.
something. Do you remember?
It's pretty high, and also Shauna just has a crazy
Yeah,
charisma.
yeah.
I do remember like a
Yeah.
very shitty pickup line that I don't remember.
Oh yeah, you did have some stupid pickup line.
It
Oh
was
my,
really shitty,
it was
but
so.
we can attribute that to everybody being like very drunk,
Yeah, yeah, no, it worked in
and
a
Shauna
way.
also being very hot,
Yeah, yeah. Like
presumably.
and also like and so like the way I described this was like Sean like stop tells the group to stop and like hops down from the table like descending from above and is like, hey there, pretty lady.
Yep.
and,
Finger
and
guns.
yeah, finger guns. And then and you
Of
like
course.
nailed the check. So I was like, okay, and cut to black. We know where this goes.
Yes.
And which is where the session ended. Um but we're gonna do both two sessions this episode, because that's just fun. Um, oh, so apparently during this party, Elika got her friend Mira drunk. Mira, who was visiting from the Maja
Yeah.
Druids. So this was like Mira's first experience. Was like, oh my god, alcohol, partying, crazy. Um, there was that.
Yep.
Elika
Wait,
apparently.
that's basically just what do they call the first week of college again?
Oh
With all the
The
frat
first week of
parties and shit.
college.
yeah, I don't know if there's a term.
No, there's a
There might
word
be.
for it.
There
Pledge
could be.
week, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
Something like that.
But yeah, Mira is getting acquainted with civilization. Apparently, Elko goes and finds some local elf grass, fantasy weed. Um,
Mm.
and then that seems where we ended the night. That's the oh this probably happened because we were describing to Elika's player who was now here for this session. Hey, this is what happened last time. What did you do during the party? And so that's probably that's why this is noted in the beginning of this session.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sean, and then we pick up with Shanla, who wakes up at Bella's house. Because so it's like clearly okay, you went back to
Yeah.
her house, and things canonically happened. Uh,
Maybe.
they definitely did. Um,
Who knows?
you apparently check for signs of Apollyon. Like this is the lady who warned you about
Yeah.
the cult, but you're just like, let's be sure.
You never know. Shanla canonically did feel guilty about doing that though.
Really? Oh, the
Yeah,
checking Apollyon. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh man, I feel
Not
bad,
seducing.
but like I should just double check.
Just gotta
because,
be sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm not sleeping with the enemy.
Yeah. I do remember she made breakfast
She made breakfast. Yeah. Do you remember anything else?
and was
Pancakes.
She had that. She
Little
had
brother?
the little brother oracle child.
Yeah, so the Persif, one who
Yeah.
had like been struck by the vision of the coming destruction and was now an oracle like Shanla, turned out was Mela's little brother, and there was like a little bit of
Yep.
comedy from the fact that he's like, "So did you two have a good time last night?"
I remember Charlotte was like, "Oh yeah, well I'm her doctor too now, yeah." And then kissed Charlotte. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, okay."
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think yeah, Mela was like um much more forward about what had happened, I think.
Yes,
Wait,
it was pretty funny though.
What's it
was
Tom?
that always the case that the brother was connected
Yeah.
to Mello? Was that a thing you decided?
I think I
Like,
decided that beforehand, and this was just where I introduced that. It's like, oh yeah, it's a
it just
plausible.
Very, very convenient.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, not convenient, but
Well,
coincidental.
I can stress this: the whole party, and then Sean like getting together with Mela was purely Gavin. You like made that happen. That there was no plans for that in my head.
Yeah.
That just
No,
happened. But
but it's interesting that it went that way.
yeah, it was cool. It was great, and it fits Seanla's
Yeah.
character that like she's the girl runs away from home, discovers oh maybe she's into women a little. Oh yeah.
Yep.
You return to the broken plank. Apparently, Elika used Shanla's room to like leave Mira in because she'd gotten very drunk. And Shanla wasn't using her
Reasonable.
room. Um, Shanla went back, talked to Kadir again, who'd been presumably doing studying and stuff. Got the shard of creation back from him. Um,
Yeah.
for some reason, Elika buys some anti-plague potions. I think Leon got infected with something at some point during the like fights.
Yeah.
They're also very convenient things to have.
Yeah, they are. But I think like Leon, the Elika's cat, got like a disease or something, and so he had to make saves
Yeah.
against that. Yeah. Um, Oh yeah. So at this point, everybody in the party goes and speaks with Ibris because they'd realized Fierce had gotten him to open up a little. Um, and this is where you learn the very specifics. Okay, what exactly did Ibris doing? You get his whole backstory, like he was a part of the Maja Druids, went into the Blight for various reasons, got recruited by this messenger guy to collect the shards, and then also recruited to attack Wanatuma, and also set up the Blight collectors. Um, and like
Yeah.
you guys become a little sympathetic because this guy's like a wild animal, right?
Feral.
And he's like locked up in this prison in chains and the people of Wanatuma aren't very sympathetic to him because he killed like hundreds of them at least. um,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just misunderstood,
he's just
guys.
misunderstood. Yeah, so the jailers. I think one of you are like, "Oh, can we let him out?" And the jailers are like, "Fuck no." He's lucky he's alive.
He's just a silly little guy.
Yeah. So you convince the jailers to be like, okay, loosen his chains a little bit, just they're digging in. And also you buy him a pig, a pig, a whole pig, and give it to him to eat. Orcus decides to share the letter he got with his father with the party. He tells them about that. And at this point, the party's like, okay, we've got, because like I said, you were being like given multiple options, and you discuss what the heck are we gonna do next. What do we do?
Yeah.
Orcus gets his buckler he paid for. Well, Elika goes and checks in with the like local followers of Arcturus, the Wild Keepers they're called, who are like dealing with the blight on Wanatuma alongside some Maja druids. Oh, and Elika speaks to a Wild Keeper about being a follower of Arcturus, the god of nature. If you guys had forgotten.
Uh
Um,
huh.
Yep.
and at this point it becomes clear Elika's players decided that Elika's probably going to follow Arcturus, like not like become a cleric, but just like become part of her character that she follows him. Apparently Elika asks around about how a wall could be made. I don't know what this wall is for, but apparently she asks about that. Oh, I think it was like a wall in. No, wait, no, that's a different. Anyway, um,
Wall.
everybody goes to the clothes shop. Ella gets some white clothes so she can tie dye him or them. So she make them because yeah, one thing I noted about like followers of Arcturus is they like rainbow. They love rainbow. They're very they're very gay.
Yeah.
Um,
went very hippie with the Arcturus followers.
Yeah, at least these ones. Eventually, she also buys some tearaway pants. Fierce gets a shirt and pants.
Which are canonically a piece of equipment you can buy
Yeah,
in Pathfinder rulebooks, are tearaway pants.
yeah. I think it was like I
Why?
think you said that, like something along like, oh yeah, that exists, and somebody's like, okay, I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The Pathfinder equipment book is a beautiful thing.
It's got some wild stuff in there. Yeah. Shanla gets a high class black dress. Um,
Yep.
Apparently, you probably anticipated needing it at some point. Also, Fierce jokingly buys Shanla a ball gag because I think you guys had there
Yeah.
was jokes
Yeah.
going around about the Mela and
Yes. The
Shanla.
arts and craft project that Shanla and Mello was
Oh
working on
yes,
together.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You buy a 10-foot pole. Shanla does, and commissions a ring. Okay. You go back to Mela's house, meet Persif again. Um, take him to the sight seekers. I have no idea.
It probably was a magic ring.
Yeah, you probably did. Yeah, probably
Or
something.
or maybe it was like fancy wear.
Oh yeah, that might have been it. You wanted a ring to go with your dress. That might have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like fancy jewelry.
Yeah, that has to be it. So apparently, so I think at this point, you guys, I don't think I noted that you decided this, but you guys decided we're going to go back into the vaults to get the paintings. That was you guys decided, like, was your first order of action. After like
Yeah, because it was closest.
because it was close, yeah. And so I think that's why you bring Persif to the sight seekers, because like Mela's going to come with you down there. So I don't know why you moved Persif around, but yeah. You give the shard of creation back to Kadir, and then prepare for the trip to the vaults. Before this, Elika dyes her clothes orange, red, and green tie-dye.
I can't imagine that actually looking too bad or too good. That's
a weird color combination, to be sure.
Yeah.
I've recently been studying color theory, and I think it could work. Maybe? I don't know. I'd have to look at the color.
Oh, look at this fancy fuck over here with his PhD
in
color theory.
No.
Anyway.
Shanla sleeps at Mela's house, so you guys like rest for the night. Others at the Broken Plank. Wake up and you wait for because apparently Tuzma was away. I think on Kalau, the other island that you guys haven't been to. And she arrives. Okay, this was kind of funny. She arrives back with a Barharan named Priscilla, who was apparently visiting the archipelago for like archaeological reasons. Now, I had come up with this character as kind of like an Indiana Jones. I think maybe like kind of cheerful, like Indiana Jones, adventurous lady type archaeologist, which is cool, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I made one critical mistake. I described her as wearing pink. Like she had a nice, like she was really girly, pink trench coat. And Gavin at the time, I don't know, stale Gavin, it was like, fuck pink. I hate pink. The color pink sucks. And so the moment I described her as wearing, so the moment I described her as like wearing this, everyone was like, ugh, pink? Fuck this bitch. I was like, no, she's cool. Guys, she's cool.
Well, she should have had a cooler color choice. I don't know what to tell you.
I guess, like, if it was a more pale pink, it would make sense. But it's like, I think a lot of our heads were like thought that bright, like mean girl type pink.
No, yeah, she was supposed to be like really girly, like a hyper, effeminate or like girly girl, but like also capable adventure archaeologist Indiana Jones type, which I thought was kind of cool. It's cool. I think it's cool, but it was
oh
pink.
yeah, for sure.
It is.
So anyway, I hoped you guys would talk to her. You guys just ignored her. She'll come back a little later because I did really like the character and wanted her to. I had plans.
That should get ruined in a dungeon though.
Mm-hmm. I did want her to like. I had plans for her for like little adventure things in the future, so she does come back. She served a purpose, but you just guys weren't as excited, hyped about it as I wanted you guys to be.
Cross of a DM.
So you explain everything to Tuzma. This is where you actually talk to Priscilla.
Yep.
A little bit, but again, not much happens. I think at this point I would have been also introducing to you guys properly the concept of Barhara, which is like one of the
Yes.
bigger nations on the main continent to the north, which is like the proper setting that I plan to like. We have a later campaign set in there, um, and Barhara is like a big part of that. So that this
Yeah,
was
it's
like
the
me,
communist place.
the communists, yes.
Trying to think, haven't we only had like one campaign there?
Two on the continent.
Oh yeah, on the same.
Gavin, I think, has been in one, and then Tom, you've been in two that have been set on there because Dangry.
Oh yeah, Dangree's there. Yeah.
What's Dangry? Who knows?
Tune in later. Find
10 years from now or something.
No, it gets mentioned.
It does. I think you guys actually did. I may have told you the name of Dangry because it was possibly relevant.
Yeah.
It was relevant at least at the end of this campaign, so maybe we can go into that more later.
Yeah.
Um.
Specifically relevant with Orcus's father,
Oh.
I believe.
Ferris's player is similarly very enjoying the Shanla Mira or Mela relationship, and so he
Yep.
jokes at their expense in front of Tuzma. And
Right.
also, go ahead if you were saying that.
I forgot what he said. No, it
Oh,
wasn't much. I just
it
forgot.
was more just like haha gay jokes, Uh,
Haha, they're in a relationship.
During Pride
yeah.
Month.
Ooh, cooties.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that. Just like. Anyways, yep.
Yeah. Um.
We were teenagers.
So you explained everything to Tuzma. Oh, so Ella, I had looked through the druid spell list and seen this one particular spell, blood something, that tells you if somebody is related to you. And I was like, oh man, I have reveals planned for later that I hope they just don't see that spell. Anyway, Elika's player saw that spell and used it on Tuzma and learned she was her aunt. So Tuzma
Oh.
was related to Elika,
Right.
which immediately was like, "What the fuck?"
Usually a spell like that does like never fucking comes up, right?
Yeah, I know, and
But I guess
I
it's just like one of the benefits of being a new player is like, oh yeah, I want to try everything.
yeah. So I was like, because I remember I'd seen it
Yeah.
beforehand and been like, well, if they find it, they find it, but I kind of hope they don't. But he found it, so yeah. So that reveal happened, not exactly when I wanted it to, but that's the fun of Pathfinder, I guess. Um, So you guys all travel with Tuzma and I think Mela and some other sight seekers back to the vaults. They set up a lift to get down the section of the stairs that was like destroyed that you previously had to like do a bunch of rope work to get past. So there was like 3 paintings. Oh, apparently Priscilla was also along with you guys. Um, the pink lady.
Yeah, because she was important for the appraisal and whatever archaeology part of
Yeah,
it.
because
Yeah.
like the Wakatupi Islands are like archaeologically valuable to the larger nations and stuff. There's things to be learned here because plus like their weird magic cycle of destruction shit. That's all weird. They send people to study here.
Yeah.
It's just you guys were the larger continents had only kind of just started to like really build a relationship and explore and realize there was things to be seen here. So you guys were like, so like you'd send like one adventurer over, like Priscilla, instead of like whole expeditions. Um, anyway, you sell one of the paintings to Priscilla, apparently a painting of an elf. Oh,
Right.
I also remember Elika's. I didn't note it here. Elika's player shows the painting of the destruction and offers to just like give it to Tuzma. Do you
Right. I
and
think I remember that.
now to put this in context, this is a painting that I had emphasized is like a masterpiece to the point that like it actually kind of evokes successfully the feeling of the destruction. You see it and you're like, oh man, that's really
Yeah.
horrifying. And
Yeah.
Tuzma is the only living person on these islands currently who has actually lived through a destruction, and it is probably one of the most traumatic moments of her life. And I look at this player is like,
Flashback.
"Hey, look at this! Don't you want this?" And I was like, "Why do you think that's a good idea?" And so I was like, she just it's like Tuzma's like, no, no, thank you, please." Like politely turns her down.
Also, that's loot.
I would believe
Mm.
I would believe that the reason he did it is like, oh hey, this is like the best one with super well done. Let's give it to the person I just realized is related to me.
Maybe. I don't know if that was the logic, but yeah, it was. She just politely turned it down. And oh, you also got Tuzma to try and open the illusion door, which or the vision door, which she successfully did. Um, and she said like, oh yeah, I just told it I was like with the archipelago no matter what, you know.
Yeah.
And then you guys take the paintings to the surface, the two that you had sold yet.
Hmm.
And
Also, I don't know if we knew that Tuzma had survived had been there since
you
the last
knew
destruction yet.
you knew how old she was roughly. Like she looked old as an elf, which means she was like at least 400 years old, and you knew how long ago the last destruction was. So you had reason to be
Ah,
like, okay, she definitely lived through it.
so we could have connected the dots.
I think it had been connected at some point at this point. It was just it was just Elika's player not thinking exactly how they might feel, and it was fine. Like it wasn't like she was truly offended. She was just it was just like shook Tuzma a little bit, like oh my.
Now, to
Thanks.
be fair, a lot of us will just not think of a thing and
Yeah, yeah.
do something. So,
It was funny. It was so yeah. And after you get back to the surface with the paintings, that's where we ended this session. So for the end of episode discussion this time, I had the idea that I wanted to talk about a problem that I would often run into, in particular at the start of this campaign, and even into future campaigns. It's still an issue. It's an issue all DMs probably deal with all the time, which is making your players do anything, just do things. You know, um, how do you manage that? Do you like do you like just tell them to what to do? Do you how do you instead of because like sometimes I'll describe it often thing is you guys would like get back to a town or whatever after something and like I'd have ideas for things you could do, but how do I communicate those, how do I present those things to you guys in such a way that you will choose to do them and not just like yeah, we buy the go to a tavern and we wait and see, you know.
we buy
um
our items, we rest, that
but yeah,
sort of
you
thing.
there's like obvious stuff like buy rest, but then what, you know?
Yeah.
Um, it's actually where the name of this podcast comes from. Is the intense frustration I sometimes felt that it's like, oh, what'll happen this session? Is it a there's a slight chance of adventure happening, you know? Uh, um, and do you guys have any thoughts about this so far? Or because I can describe the
I,
breakthrough.
I I think I think it's more of a case of like different types of players and like
Oh
different
yeah.
types of DMs. Of course, I think at the start we all kind of struggled to do stuff because it's more just like we're even me because this was a new group for me because
Yeah.
I never played with any of you guys beforehand. I played other games, but it was kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
Where the whole game itself was a lot more open, and like we're all just new, and we're all
Oh,
very
you're
stupid.
saying you're saying mine were more open.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
what I played before
Mhm.
is called PFS, which is like pre-made adventures that were like you were essentially an agent that was assigned a mission, and you would know what to do and where to go.
Yeah, yeah.
Typically,
So you've got like go do this very clearly just presented to you
yes.
You
in
were
game.
reading a book or playing a game, you weren't
Right.
writing a book.
And I'll say like my style is very much like I come up with a problem that is presented to the players, but and there are ways the players can but deal with it, but it's kind of like open ended, and I want, but it's very difficult to make happen, proactivity from my players to like they'll like, oh, we can do this and we could do that, and maybe it like making plans, thinking about their position within the world and what opportunities they have available and how they can like that's the ideal, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't really happen. But like when I'm
Personally,
planning coming up with a thing is I like to go ahead, Tom.
personally as a player, I have, and honestly as a person, I have a bit of a lack of initiative. I find sometimes because I get
Mhm.
nervous.
That's an issue.
But
Yeah, that's an issue
that's
I often run into in.
yeah,
I'll let you talk in a second, Tom. That's an issue I run into with most of you guys. Is most of you seem more comfortable most of the time with just like, here's the problem, deal with the problem. You know, that's very which is fine. But like which is why I run into issues sometimes with you guys just sitting around and being like, "What do we do?"
Yeah.
Mm.
I think I'm not sure about other people, but I think it might be a thing of we don't want to do the wrong thing sometimes,
Yeah,
or our mind kind of goes blank. It's like, like how do you decide as a person what are you going to do today, right?
yeah,
You
yeah,
don't like think about it, you just do. And when you're like prompted, if I ask you right now, what are you doing today? Unless
right.
you've had plans, you're not going to come up with an answer within 5 seconds.
See that I think that's I usually do have like a pretty okay. This is what I'm doing this day. I have broad plans for my life. Usually, I think about with like very so like yeah. So there's like the way I think about my world and what the players can do, and then there's what you guys naturally think about, which like causes issues sometimes. Um, but what anyway the I felt like the breakthrough I kind of made in this session was the presenting explicitly of choices. You'd think it's obvious, but it was like such a breakthrough for me. Like, okay, just make it clear to them they have these choices, you know, because like it isn't it's obvious to the DM what they can do, but it's not obvious to the players. So just find some way to explicitly present the multiple choices they might have, and then they will compare and contrast those options and more actively think about what they can do and what the consequences. That it was massive when I just realized like the letter, and then I also had like um the cult infiltration, and I also had the uh Druin apparently wanted to see you guys, you know? So it's like multiple choices. And also there's the paintings, you know.
Mm.
Yeah,
So like I presented multiple choices to you within the same session, and so you guys had to compare and contrast and make an active choice about what you were going to do next. And that was great.
yeah.
I felt like this was yeah, a big breakthrough in this session. I remember feeling.
Yeah.
Now, certain DMs and certain people might have concerns about like because different players want different amounts of freedom, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, one of you mentioned before, like not wanting to do the wrong thing, and I feel like that does like get in the way of a lot of players because they feel like the DM must have some sort of plan, and I just need to figure out what it is the DM wants me to do, right?
Yep.
Um,
Because I know you have a story in mind, obviously.
I have the way I think about it. Most of my campaigns is I have moments. I have like incidents that are like being built to, and you guys will probably end up at some point, but the in between is kind of just session by session by session, kind of generally meandering in that direction. So you guys actually have a lot of freedom usually in how you get between like big events usually, because the big
Yeah,
events are usually somewhat yeah, they're likely to happen, you know.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's also the concern of what would my character want to do
Mm.
as an idea. Like if you don't have like a well defined character, like if you're just like generic fighter guy,
Oh yeah,
what do I do? He has no personality yet.
yeah, for example, like Shanla's character was well defined as like I am party girl
Yeah,
or like rebellious girl. So oh, I have some free time. I'll throw a party. You know.
yeah,
Mm.
So like having a very clear personality. So on the player end, having a very clear personality and like idea of who your character is within the world can definitely help you as a player decide what am I going to do next, and it helps the DM also plan for things for that character too.
there's
Um,
also the big idea of like if you're making a character and you don't like even if they have a well defined character like Sean as a party person, I wanted to have Orcus as sort of like a soldier type guy, like in that kind of idea.
mm,
But I
right.
don't know what soldiers do all day outside of maintenance.
Very little.
So
Yeah.
I kind of fell short sometimes on what to do.
Uh, so Gavin, do you have any broad thoughts on this problem, or what or
Um,
how you feel?
I think
Sorry.
what's it like you said before, it's important to put like the objective marker in their head. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like because the event like they make a mental checklist, right, and then they can go do that checklist.
It takes a very particular
It's-
player to not need a checklist
Yeah.
or like a goal was said
yes,
before. Yeah. Um,
and those players have malicious plans. They will burn down that orphanage. They will commit tax fraud.
those players are dangerous and should not be trusted. Yes. Yeah.
I
They should be
think
locked away.
This is why I'm a DM.
Yeah. I think a lot of like you can compare it to a number of different video games, like things like Breath of the Wild, Skyrim, all that stuff. Depending on
Mhm.
like in Skyrim there's like a set main quest that you can go through, but there's all the side quests, obviously. In Zelda Breath of the Wild, there's exactly one main quest, and it's quote unquote defeat Ganon. Tells you nothing about how to do it.
Right.
Which is
Which
an
is
interesting thing.
yeah, that's kind of how my campaigns end up being structured sometimes. Um, is here's the big problem, figure it out. Um, and again, ideally, like, okay, what can we do? But you have to like figure out, okay, well, here's the problem they're dealing with. There's the big problem, and then here's the thing they can do right now. And how do we present those choices? How do I present those choices to them? You know?
And a lot of the time you can't, as the DM, tell the player, hey, I want you to do, hey, this is the moment, you do what you want to do. This, you have to somehow figure out how to do it in the game world.
Yeah. That's the real challenge. Is it,
Have an
without
NPC talk to someone, have a message, have like a bounty board or something.
without like explicitly like pulling the players aside and, hey, here's your options, go do one of them, figure out what you're doing.
Yeah.
You can't. It's very difficult. It doesn't make a good campaign to do that constantly.
No.
So you have to be more subtle about it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any thoughts about like what it feels like from your guys' perspective as players when you're like, what do we do? Where like, do you guys have moments where you feel like I don't have anything for you or
Uh,
whatever?
a lot of the
Uh,
times, the only time I think that is when the only time I think like, oh, Tyler doesn't have a thing in particular for us to do, would be when it's like we just did a thing, and it's like that in between period of like, okay, we've finished and we've purchased stuff, and then we have like the free day. It's like, oh, well now, and but even in that scenario, almost feel like you're prompting us, hey, what do you like? What do you want to do? Type thing. Less
yeah,
do a
I've
thing. It's like,
that was a common like awkward moment in early campaigns. It would be like, hey, you've got free time. What are you gonna do? And I'd like wait for anyone to have anything, and maybe somebody would go buy equipment, you know?
yeah.
Um, and I think I'd have to like subtly hint, like, oh, you could go do this, you could go do this.
I think part of that might be we don't know what, like, if we're entering a town for the first time, we don't know what's going on in that town. So maybe as a
Yeah.
player,
But
maybe I should be like, hey, what's going on in
I'm
the
not
town?
talking
Any
about just
events?
like
Type
Newtown.
thing.
I'm just talking generally. It's a common thing.
Yeah.
Like even in Hintella or whatever, there'd be moments where like you guys could just kind of sit around. And I'd be like, okay, I guess there's nothing happening, you know. And so I've learned most of the time with you guys, it's not you're not gonna go.
Ironically, this is the problem. This seems to be is the opposite of railroading.
Yeah. If things are too analysis paralysis, too open ended,
Yeah.
that absolutely. Um,
Which, like, honestly, I've never felt railroaded by you,
mm-hmm.
except maybe, honestly, no, it's just, I'm trying to think of any time I've felt railroaded, but I can't think of any, actually.
Yeah, no, I think I literally just run into the opposite problem. Is
Yeah.
the players are looking for the rails. Where are we going? What's happening? Oh, we
We're
don't
on the
know.
train, but there's no conductor.
Yeah. Please, we need direction. So
Yeah.
and I'm like, well, so choose your direction. Go that way, and I'll lay down the rails. And it's like, well,
I
yeah,
would like to say that there was times where like I have to be like, all right, guys, let's all go this way, like kind of like pull,
oh yeah.
like
Go ahead.
just
Sorry.
because like no one else had like played before, right? It's just like
Yeah,
okay, let's come on, let's go. You pull like the leash, you know.
we've said it before that like often Shanlo was the one to be like, okay, we're doing this now, guys, because yeah, everybody
Yes.
else was very
We were all new
reluctant
and
to
fresh.
yeah, and so anytime a thing is chosen to do, it should be assumed Shanlo was the one that said, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah.
Just
Yep.
that should be
I
assumed with this
think
campaign at
a
least.
number of us have gotten better at it. Like,
Oh yeah, certainly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
like, admittedly, in most campaigns, there does end up being a leader, sort of, a lot of time that pushes the plot forward.
Generally, yeah.
In our most recent campaign, where we have like players cycling all the time, it's interesting to see who's kind of like comes out front a lot of the time in those scenarios.
Mm-mm.
Of course, we do have a couple players who like kind of struggle with that, but
Well, some players just don't really want to.
yeah,
They just don't want to do that, and that's fine.
Some players just want to murder stuff and stack dice.
and that is a valid opinion or want.
Yeah, yeah.
Get me to the murder. Get me to the murder right now.
So, unless you guys have any particular thoughts about this topic to follow up, I think we've reached the end of the discussion.
Don't have anything in particular, no.
No. All right. Well, that'll be the end of the episode. See everybody next time. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.